What's going on, guys? This is Real Deal Fantasy HQ with your boy LQ, back in for another great episode. Today's episode is a stardom, sit-em. Football is back. Week 1, we are here. I'm not wasting no time. Let's get right into the episode. Wow, week 1 is here. Thursday night football. I'm recording this in the morning, and I'm so hyped because football is back, people. It's about goddamn time. COVID tried to derail us. We are here for the first start and sit for the season. Let's go. So I'm going to kick it off. I'm only going to do this, and I'm only going to say this once. Start and sit videos. I kind of wasn't a fan in the beginning, but then I found my way of how to do things. So, for example, the first guy I'm going to be talking about is Jared Goff. Now, Jared Goff is a tier, I'll say 3 or 4 quarterback. And this only applies for people who have the Jimmy Garoppolos or, the Daniel Joneses, Joe Burrows, and that tier where you're on the bubble of questioning if you should start Jared Goff. It's not Jared Goff versus Patrick Mahomes or Jared Goff versus Lamar Jackson. It's not any of that. These are for the people who understand how start and sit works. Most start and sit, audience people that go to those articles or go to these videos are on the bubble between Jimmy Garoppolo or Jared Goff. Who do you start? So I'm telling you, this is how I'm going to be doing it with the tight ends, running backs, and etc. So Jared Goff is a must start for me against the Dallas Cowboys in the new stadium, primetime football, Sunday night at 8:20. Make sure you guys are watching. So Jared Goff is going to be coming out on fire. Sean McVay is 3-0 against the season openers, and he's actually 2-0 against McCarthy. So I definitely want those odds on my side with Jared Goff. He's going to be coming out healthy. Everybody on the field is healthy. We have no injuries other than Darrell Henderson, but that is nothing to be talked about right now. But Jared Goff is a very good quarterback. Now, if you are waiting in the later rounds to go get Jared Goff, or you waited probably like the 12th, 11th round where he was kind of floating at, or some leagues, he's not even drafted. He's still sitting out there on waivers, which is crazy to me. But again, he's one of those tier 3 quarterbacks who's going to give you 20 to 25 points a game. And that's something that I definitely want with Sean McVay coming in hot. He's a very offensive mind, offensive guru guy. Jared Goff is a very polished quarterback. I'm not saying that he's like, the freaking Aaron Rodgers or Tom Brady's. I'm just saying he's going to get you 20 to 25 points. And that's definitely something you want out of a quarterback that you wait in the later rounds to get once you stacked up on stud running backs and wide receivers and etc. So I definitely think Jared Goff is a must start this week, coming out hot with Cooper Kupp, Robert Woods, Tyler Higbee, Gerald Everett, and my boy Van Jefferson. I definitely want all parts of Jared Goff going into week 1. Now, my second start, Hayden Hurst. Let's see what the guy got. He's the plug and play for Austin Hooper going into an offense where Matt Ryan, if you follow the curse since 2012, this is his hot year. So I definitely want to see what Hayden Hurst. It's not really taking a gamble because he has the Seahawks. The Seahawks allowed the second most points for tight ends. So that's something definitely that I want in my starting lineup with Hayden Hurst because you probably invested pretty high for him. I'll say the 6th, 7th round where I've seen Hayden Hurst go, where he's been floating in most of these leagues. But let's see what he got, man. Plug and play for Austin Hooper to see those targets. Probably going to see more than 80 targets this season. So let's see if he can see 7 to 8 targets in this game against week 1 against the Seahawks. Now, my next guy, Marvin Jones, the most underrated, most disrespected wide receiver 2 out there on the market going in those later rounds. I definitely feel like Marvin Jones is a must start for me, especially if he's sitting in your flex position. I'll even put him in the wide receiver 2 spot if I had him, on my roster. So him sitting in that flex position or him sitting on your bench right now, he needs to find a way into your lineup. Don't force him into your lineup, but what I'm saying is if you have a guy that's questionable that you're not really thinking about, like, oh, I don't know if I should put him in, or if he's a rookie, he hasn't really proven anything yet, put Marvin Jones right there in that flex spot, people. Don't question it. Marvin Jones will be facing a number 2 corner because the Kyle Fuller, they're going against the Bears. He's already assigned to Kenny Golladay. Marvin Jones is going to be facing the second best corner, which is a rookie right now. So the most seasoned and vet freaking wide receiver that's going to be out there is going to be cutting up that rookie like it's sushi, people. So Marvin Jones needs to be in your starting lineup. He's a must start for me. Next up, Tariq Cohen. Only reason why I'm starting Tariq Cohen is because David Montgomery is still dealing with that groin injury, and I don't really want to gamble with that. I don't like that he's trying to speed up the process of a groin injury, because he's not really like, I don't understand why he's not taking the full 3 weeks to sit out. He's limited in practices yesterday with, the groin injury. It kind of lingers. So I definitely don't want to gamble on Monty, but Tariq Cohen could come in. He could see double-digit targets out of the backfield. I mean, I'm full sending him because he's a solid flex position. You can never go wrong with Tariq Cohen sitting in that flex position, even with, Monty there. But with Monty out, it should be a no-brainer to put Tariq Cohen at your flex position against the Detroit Lions. You know what I mean? So they're definitely going to lean on him a lot, I believe, because I really don't believe in Trubisky. We might see Nick Foles come in at the third quarter, but it's not that hard to dump the ball off or give the ball off to Tariq Cohen. So I definitely think he's set up for success for week 1, so he could bring in some points to help contribute to get that first win for the season. Now, very quickly, let's go over the must sit, people that we have questions about, people who are probably going to be the reason why we lose week 1. In week 1, you need to set the tone for your league. You need to come out 1-0, talk your shit come Tuesday morning when it's all said and done that you came out 1-0 and you could talk your shit to your league mates. Now, this is going to be included like with 3 players. This is basically my rookie sit. So Jonathan Taylor, JT, I got to sit him week 1. I'm not too sure what's going to happen with Marlon Mack there. You know what I mean? So we knew we had to be very patient with JT. I do not want to gamble, with Jonathan Taylor, being that he's probably like your running back 2 or whatever the case may be, but it's fine. Fantasy is about taking chances as well, but you got to be smart. Now, Marlon Mack was named the starter last week. We already know that Jonathan Taylor is the true starter, but JT, for me, I'm going to be very patient of when I start him. You know what I mean? Because you don't want to come out 0-1. You don't want to do that. And then you kind of shit the bed with Jonathan Taylor, and then it's going to be overreaction Monday, everybody talking shit about JT. But again, I'm preaching you need to be patient until we see something, until we see him, 60-40 with JT being the 60% of those carries in that split, then okay, then I'll full send it. But right now, my fear is that he's the 40% in this situation where Marlon Mack has the respect from the coaching staff, where they have the respect saying, like, you're the starter. You know what I mean? So that I do not want to get any messy ideas about starting Jonathan Taylor week 1. Next, Cam Akers, my boy, diehard Rams fan, but I cannot start, Cam Akers going into week 1, being that it was already said they're thinking about a running back committee, a hot hand, and, they have Darrell Henderson coming back to practice yesterday, him being limited, so he might be ready to go for week 1. So this is basically a tryout to see who can be the RB1 for the Rams at the new stadium, primetime, lights on, camera action, let's go. Who could be the guy that can catch the hot hand and take the job and run away with it? This is basically a tryout for these 3 running backs, Malcolm Brown, Darrell Henderson, and Cam Akers. So there's very limited practices because of COVID. They had no preseason. So this is basically, game time, game speed against a different opponent that doesn't, necessarily know the playbook. This is just week 1, full send. Let's see who can do it. Now, when it comes to my roster, I can't start Cam Akers saying, oh, well, maybe they'll give him the ball, more than Darrell Henderson. Okay, but Malcolm Brown is still there as well. So it's a 3-headed monster that you don't want to deal with in week 1. That's not how we try to bring home the gold here, when you follow the Wolfpack. We can't take these chances with Cam Akers. Now, my next guy, DeAndre Swift. Now, AP signs last week, and it definitely takes a blow to Swift. I don't understand the people who are preaching that this is more of a hit to Kieran Johnson, but it's a hit to Swift as well. We want Swift to get the max touches. We want him to get everything. We knew Kieran at some point in the season was going to be injured. So now you bring in Adrian Peterson, who's going to be annoying, that take at least 9 to 10 touches a game. I'm not feeling that number at all. Those should be all the Swift. You know what I mean? So Kieran Johnson's healthy right now for the moment. So he's been named the starter, but AP's there. He's going to try to be annoying. He's trying to be that old guy at the club that still thinks he can get chicks, but I don't need that stress going into week 1 with Swift in my starting lineup. I see a lot of people in leagues that I'm in have Swift at the flex position. I think you're out of your mind. There's 2 running backs in front of him, being that they're both veteran running backs, and he's the rookie. So therefore, you have to play it smart. Be patient with Swift. Swift will get his time. Maybe mid-season now with AP there, but I believe like it was going to take literally 3 to 4 weeks if it was just Kieran Johnson. But you have AP there, and I'm just not feeling it for week 1. Now, moving on from the rookie sit, those are my 3 rookie just sit, be patient. All 3 of these guys you have to be patient with. You can't full send them week 1. You might take that L trying to do that. Now, moving on. Now, Devin Singletary has the Jets this week, and I'm sitting him because I'm really worried about Zach Moss being the guy, really early into the season. I mean, like I said before, we saw Singletary's, his ceiling last season with Frank Gore there, being the old guy, just being the goal line back, all the touches that we wish Devin Singletary got, but he did not get. But we've seen flashes week to week where Singletary could be, RB1. He could handle the full workload, but it looks like Buffalo doesn't believe that. Zach Moss was drafted as, one of the top 5 prospects of running backs, and they took him. So I definitely think Zach Moss is very impressive. I definitely like his tape. He's a bruiser. He looks for contact, downhill runner. He's definitely going to be the goal line back. Singletary does, he brings some PPR value because he's catching the balls out of the backfield, but I just don't think he can fend off Zach Moss. Zach Moss all through camp has been nothing but good news, great reports. And it's not that Singletary had a terrible camp. He did have the fumbling issues, but it just gets you worried that you just keep hearing week after week, Zach Moss, that's Zach Moss. And it's like, damn, I cannot start Singletary week 1. I can start off 0-1 starting Singletary going in, as my RB2 or even my flex. I've seen people draft Singletary in the 6th, 7th round and have that confidence that he's the RB1 for Buffalo. But in that case, I really don't see it with Zach Moss being so impressive. So he gets the hard sit from me. Now, this next and last backfield that's always been on my mind a question. It's not really a big headline. It's not really like a big storyline, but Matt Breida and Jordan Howard. But honestly, if you're on a bubble of thinking starting one of these guys and they have to be your RB2 or maybe flex, I won't fault you if they're questionable flex players, but if they're at your RB2, which I've seen in a couple of leagues that I'm in, even my big home league, it's like you kind of failed the draft of when it's been already like the narrative that this year is a running back heavy draft. We had literally 9 to 10 running backs go in the first round. So if you didn't get the memo, if you just going into the draft and you're like, oh, I'm going to go 0 running back, which not a good idea, and you waited this late for a RB2 to be Matt Breida and Jordan Howard, I don't know. I think you failed the draft, my guy. But anyway, they have New England this week, a very tough defense. It's a tough matchup, for week 1. And again, all these week 1 matchups are going to be it's going to be really weird with limited practices and COVID, et cetera, and no preseason. It's going to be a tough matchup for me to start Jordan Howard or Matt Breida. Thank God I'm not in that situation where I have to think about that. But again, for the people who are, they're getting the hard sit for me. New England's going to be a tough matchup. Their defense was one of the best last season. Not much drop off. They did lose some depth. A couple of guys, opted out for COVID, but they weren't going to play unless somebody got injured anyway. So defensive wise, there's still going to be a hard matchup for Matt Breida and Jordan Howard to come out there and put up big points. Maybe they will, maybe they don't. But again, I'm not going to be the guy to have them, as my RB2 to have them in question on the bubble of like, oh, who do I start right now? No, not me. I'm not that guy. But anyway, they get the hard sit. Those are my starting sits, but honorable mentions. Now, by the time I put this video out, hopefully Mike Evans, his hamstring gets better. I kind of wanted to put Mike Evans on this sit because it's the same hamstring that put him on IR last season, but it's kind of hard, sitting Mike Evans, man. I think he's going to go out there. He's still going to play. He's a dog. But I wouldn't expect 20 points from him. I wouldn't expect those high number points that he puts up, when he's healthy week to week. Mike Evans, for me, if you have another wide receiver that you can put in that wide receiver 2 spot, maybe flex Mike Evans, maybe just wait until Saturday night. If there's any reports of if he's going to be okay for, week 1. But I don't know, man. Expectations for Mike Evans for me, I have him in 2 of my leagues. He's going to be looking at between 10 to 15 points, if that, you know what I mean? So don't get your high hopes up. Hopefully you have another wide receiver that can fill in for that injury, and hopefully he's good to go for week 1 full send. But that hamstring is definitely going to be lingering, so that's definitely something to watch out. That's going to be the Godwin show, even though Godwin might be matched up with the number 1 corners, but I think Godwin should be fine. He's a good wide receiver where he's able to get separation, and plus they got plenty of other weapons: Fournette, Gronk, OJ Howard, and then, Mike Evans. So he should be fine. But I know Mike Evans is a dog. He's going to play, but I did question about putting him on this list for sitting with the hamstring. And it's Thursday, so Brandon Cook's also dealing with quads. Is the game time decision. By the time you see this or by the time you watch this or even got this far in the video, we'll know if he played or not. So there's that. And I want to thank you guys. This is amazing that I'm doing a start and sit. It is week 1. Fucking fantasy football is back. Football is back. Let's go.